TikTokers cannot be allowed to dictate who becomes mayor of New York City. I'm serious. A whole bunch of content creators are endorsing Zohran Mamdani, a radical far-left candidate in the New York City mayoral race.
I personally will be ranking Zohran, and I will not be ranking Andrew Cuomo. As someone who has literally been punched in the head in the streets of Manhattan, I still think it's the best city in the world. Zohran is talking about creating a whole new city agency called the Department of Community Safety, as well as making New York City more affordable and so many other things. Listen, you can criticize me all you want. I agree. I should have been voting in prior New York City local elections, but the time is now to take action. Please, 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 if you're anything like me, learn from me. Change your voter registration by June 14th.
In some recent polls, Mamdani has surged ahead in the primary field, ahead of previous frontrunner, former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. As a New York City resident myself, I've identified some serious red flags about Mamdani. Let's get into it. After a brief period of moderate governance, for New York City at least, under Eric Adams, who recently switched his party affiliation from Democratic to Independent, NYC could be making a massive mistake in this upcoming election. Eric Adams is running for a second term, as I said, as an independent. Now, Cuomo had a few scandals during his tenure as governor, nursing home lockdowns and deaths, alleged sexual impropriety. But in this case, I take the devil I do know over the devil I don't know of the two Democrats. Let me explain. 33-year-old Ugandan-born Zohran Mamdani has won the hearts and minds of young, naive New Yorkers who can't see past their monthly rent bill and beyond their TikTok feed.
Every politician says New York is the greatest city on the globe. But what good is that if no one can afford to live here? City Hall is engulfed in corruption.
Unscientific report.
The cost of living is the real crisis. New Yorkers are being crushed by rent and childcare. The slowest buses in the nation are robbing us of our time and our sanity. Working people are being pushed out of the city they built. A mayor could change this, and that's why I'm running.
I empathize with them on the rent, but Mamdani knows all the buzzwords for this election cycle, Trump and oligarchy. He knows the tricks to stay relevant among NYC voters. Currently, Mamdani is a New York State Assemblyman for a district that encompasses sections of Long Island City and Astoria, Queens. Oh, and he openly identifies as a democratic socialist. He wants to dismantle capitalism and dramatically expand government control over our private industries and lives. He thinks capitalism is the boogeyman for basically every problem we have, and he wants to replace it with state-run socialism, which is just communism on training wheels. Naturally, Zohran has secured the endorsements of fellow socialist Bernie Sanders, disgraced former Congressman Jamal Bowman, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
This is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and I am here loud and proud to rank Zohran Mamdani #1 for mayor of New York City.
While we know AOC's positions are ridiculous, the endorsement will do a lot for Mamdani as AOC earns almost 70% of the vote in her precinct every 2 years. Mamdani wants universal rent control and tenant laws that would harm landlords and destroy private property rights. And we've tried rent control before. It's not a real housing solution. While it might lower prices for tenants in the short term, it also tends to decrease the total supply of housing and discourage the new construction of homes. But in an attempt to address this, Mamdani promises to, quote, triple the city's production of permanently affordable, union-built, rent-stabilized homes, constructing 200,000 new units over the next 10 years. Then he's going to, quote, crack down on bad landlords.
Starting on day one, we will expand the city's special enforcement programs, doubling fines for hazardous violations and tripling them for conditions that are immediately dangerous. And when a really bad landlord, like this guy, refuses to fix it, the city's gonna step in, make the repairs, and send them the bill. If that doesn't work, the city's taking over the building. We're putting the worst landlords out of business.
Tenants will be able to schedule and track inspections with a revamped 311, and if a landlord refuses to make a repair, the city will do it and send them the bill. Mamdani also plans to demolish Elizabeth Street Garden and build affordable housing there instead. That was a major topic of debate last year. Another similarity to communists of the past is replacing beautiful art and architecture with brutalist shoeboxes. Rent control sounds nice if you don't read the fine print. A majority of New York City households rented as of 2021, with 69% of the city's housing units, more than 2/3, being occupied by renters. Mamdani's startling economic policy doesn't end with housing, though. He wants to build 5 city-owned grocery stores, 1 in each borough. These grocery stores will be, according to Mamdani, focused on keeping prices low, not making a profit. Without having to pay rent or property taxes, they will reduce overhead and pass on savings to shoppers. They will buy and sell at wholesale prices, centralize warehousing and distribution, and partner with local neighborhoods on products and sourcing. Okay, so we're literally going with the Soviet model. Public grocery stores. You can bet that the selection of food at these stores will be garbage, because that's what happens when you remove the free market. But that's not all. Mamdani also wants to raise the minimum wage to $30 an hour by 2030. Once again, we have been here before. This is going to crush small businesses and stifle innovation in NYC. He also wants to renovate 500 public schools with renewable energy infrastructure. Okay, so the schools are randomly just not going to have power during the day. That's how I'm reading this. That won't be disruptive to learning at all, especially not after New York City school shutdowns and mask mandates. Just replace renewable energy infrastructure with unreliable energy infrastructure. Fixed it for you, Mamdani. How does Mamdani plan to raise the money to finance all this stuff? Of course, tax the rich and the corporations who already pay the bulk of the taxes and don't really like the business environment in Gotham anyway, and they're about to hate it a lot more. The Manhattan Institute determined Mamdani's proposal would give an $18,000 bonus to millionaires who move to the New York suburbs or another state entirely, which would be awful for state and city businesses. Back to what I was saying about TikTokers. Influencers are really big in New York City. It's a whole sector of the economy. If you've ever seen a ring light in the corner of a trendy restaurant in the West Village, well, yeah. The influencers probably think Mamdani's proposals are amazing, but they are very, very wrong. This would go downhill fast. And speaking of influencers, it makes me think of this girl.
You guys, I was literally just walking and a man came up and punched me in the face. Oh my God, it hurts so bad. I can't even talk. Literally, I fell to the ground and now this giant goose egg is forming and I'm like, oh my God, it looks so crazy.
You might recognize this girl from the opening of this video. She got punched in the face on the streets of New York City, but now has openly endorsed Mamdani for mayor. There was also this girl.
It was a typical Tuesday morning when Kendra Hall, a well-known speaker and author, found herself the target of a sudden and violent attack. As she walked along Manhattan's Upper East Side, a man moving in the opposite direction struck her in the head without warning, knocking her to the ground beside the street.
Violent crime in New York City is a serious issue, but Mamdani wants to defund the police. We've been over this too. This is suicide for a city. I'm a New York City resident again, and I've never once thought to myself, gee, I wish there were fewer cops on the subway platform, as some mentally ill vagrants are screaming and harassing people. And that reminds me of the Daniel Penny episode. Penny neutralized a thug who was threatening to kill passengers on a subway car. And after being charged with criminally negligent homicide, he was acquitted by a jury of his peers in New York City, thank God. But under Mamdani's regime, we can be sure that good Samaritans like Penny will be punished even more, and anarchy will reign in the Big Apple. Because again, he supports cutting funding to the NYPD, he supports soft on crime laws, open drug use, and street protests. This guy is as fringe as they come. He wants to turn the city into the next communist experiment. 10 days of early voting in New York's mayoral election have already begun. Now it's ranked choice voting, which shakes things up significantly. Here's how it works. All first choice votes are counted. If a candidate receives more than 50% of first choice votes, that candidate wins. If no candidate earns more than 50% of first choice votes, then counting will continue in subsequent rounds. At the end of each round, the last place candidate is eliminated, and voters who chose that candidate now have their vote counted for their next choice. Your vote is counted for your second choice only if your first choice is eliminated. If both your first and second choices are eliminated, your vote is counted for your next choice, and so on. This process continues until there are 2 candidates left. The candidate with the most votes in that round will head to the general election on November 4th. In another effort to unseat the frontrunner, Andrew Cuomo, Zohran Mamdani did a cross-endorsement with Brad Lander, who is another Democratic mayoral candidate. The arrangement being that everyone who lists Mamdani as their first choice should list Brad Lander as their second choice, and everyone who lists Brad Lander as their first choice should list Mamdani as their second choice, so that Cuomo is penalized, and no matter what, one of these two far-left guys ends up becoming the primary candidate. If you're confused, that's okay. We all are. Just to add another layer to this, Mamdani also entered into another cross-endorsement arrangement with another Democratic mayoral candidate in New York City, Michael Blake. So basically, he's maximizing the chances that anyone but Cuomo makes it onto the Democratic ticket. It's very manipulative, but that's the system in New York City. We've already told you what you need to know about Mamdani, so the vigilance now is up to the voting public. As I said earlier, Mamdani is going to be one of these radicals that condones violence in the streets because it's for the right cause, whether that's the Palestinian movement or against ICE deportations. We all know that many of these Ivy League campuses and other elite colleges across the country have mass imported people with very toxic ideas who hate Western civilization and have literally brought the Antifada to our shores. For more on that, click here.